Chapter 9 and Psalm 126 are our readings today for this Holy Monday, Monday of Holy Week. We remember on this Monday of Holy Week that a lot of times referred to as the day in which Jesus cleanses the temple, finds money changers, people taking advantage of the travelers who had come on pilgrimage to Jerusalem, to the temple to offer sacrifices. And many times those exchange rates were not in benefit of those traveling and the people being taken advantage of. Jesus sees this happening and realizes people are trying to take advantage of profiting off of these religious worshipers in order to gain dishonest income. Not that they're gaining income, and that's not bad, but they were doing it dishonestly. And also, it's the day, remember, Jesus cursing this fig tree. A little bit of a story there in the Gospel of Matthew, and I think the Gospel of Mark. But we're not there speaking too much on that this week. You can read more about what Jesus does. But we're in John 9, and in John 9 we have the sixth sign. There you go, say that right. Sixth sign, a whole chapter dedicated to one story, to one healing of a man born blind. And it's interesting here that we say in the beginning of this chapter 9, John 9, verse 1, as Jesus was passing by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Notice the assumption is that, well, sin causes bad things to happen in this world. So, did his parents sin or did this man sin? That results in his blindness. And then Jesus says, neither this man nor his parents sinned. This came about so that God's work might be displayed in him. We must do the work of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. And it continues then that Jesus spits in some dirt, makes some mud, puts it on the man's eyes, and then sends him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. And then he comes back seeing. And the controversy that happens because of this is not so much the blind man being able to see, so that the works of God might be displayed in him, not as a result of sin. That's just his blindness is a part of the brokenness in the world and the redemption that God can bring about, even through the healing hands of Jesus. But it's interesting that what happens is he gets in trouble, or really Jesus is the one who gets in trouble, because what happens is Jesus did this on the Sabbath, that making mud and healing a blind man is something that gets some of the Pharisees pretty upset, because he's doing this on a Sabbath day, thinking that he is not from God, and gets a great inquisition into this man. In fact, they bring his parents in as well, trying to make sure that this kid actually was blind, that they're not trying to pull something off on him. And the parents, verify that he was blind, but don't want to get involved in the reason why he's no longer blind. They let him answer for himself. And you can kind of see here in the man's voice some sarcasm, because they keep questioning him, not wanting to admit that Jesus did this, and Jesus healed him, and Jesus might be who people are claiming him to be, the Messiah. After the man kind of gets thrown out of the presence of the Pharisees, and they come up with the conclusion: you were born, verse 34 of chapter 9, you were born entirely in sin, and you are trying to teach us. And they threw him out. So you can see where the disciples had that thought, who sinned, or this man, or this, or his parents. And obviously it was the teaching of the day, because the Pharisees themselves, say this is your fault, or this is your parents' fault, and because you're a sinner, you can't teach us. Only we who are self-righteous can teach each other, if that. But Jesus comes into the scene, and Jesus introduces himself not just as a miracle worker, but he introduces himself as the Son of Man. And this man, too, believes in him, worships him. And then Jesus hears still some Pharisees around, and accuses them of being blind, that they think they can see, but they are actually blind, because they are not perceiving who Jesus is. My prayer for us this day, as we read this story, as we hear the sixth sign in the Gospel of John, that our eyes would be open always to the Word of God, and to that Word which would be a lamp to our feet and a light to our path, especially during this Holy Week, that you can journey in the Word, journey with other people, to see the places Jesus goes and hear what he says. And especially as we go slowly here through the Gospel of John, chapter 9 today, today. We'll be in chapter 10 tomorrow, moving our way slowly through it this week, and then the first week, Easter. My prayer is that you'd be just encouraged by what Jesus does, what Jesus says in the midst of this all, knowing that He's got the answers to our blindness, our sin, by the power of His death and His resurrection for you, so that you might be forgiven. So, have a blessed Easter, or not Easter Monday, Holy Week Monday. That'll be next week. But this week's Holy Monday, as you think about the things Jesus does this week, here cleansing the temple and cursing the fig tree are usually remembered as part of that. But we're also remembering what He does when He heals this blind man through. Although that work be done on a Sabbath, it's not. Jesus is still Lord of that Sabbath, and we hear His powerful words and claiming who He is and calling to faith this formerly blind man who can now see, who becomes one of those who testifies to who Jesus is. My prayer is that you can testify to who Jesus is this week as well. Encourage and invite others. Thanks for all the people that came out for Easter Fest. What a blast. What a fun time telling the story of Jesus and sharing some fellowship and food and egg hunt and just hearing the good news that the grave is empty, the tomb is empty.